Welcome to VidZet, your home for careful consideration of our common concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Please remember to support VidZet on Patreon, like us on Facebook, and follow @VidZet on Twitter. The FBI Special Counsel investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia has created so much news that we need to bring everyone up to date. So far, it has returned one indictment and 2 guilty pleas, and the news has moved so fast that I've had to re-record this podcast. The indictment against Manafort and Papadopoulos has to do with financial dealings in the Ukraine, not Russia, from 2005 to 2014. Donald Trump announced his candidacy in 2015, so this has nothing to do with Trump. Then Mueller got guilty pleas from Michael Flynn and Rick Gates on charges of lying to the FBI. Neither one had anything to do with the campaign. As noted Democrat law professor Alan Dershowitz notes, this is the worst thing that Mueller could have done to the collusion idea.
The more important point I think you make in the piece is that the fact that he was charged with lying is a sign of weakness on behalf of the special counsel. Now, why do you make that point?
Well, I think when the special counsel wants to indict somebody and make him into a cooperator, the last thing they want to do is indict him for lying, because it makes it clear that you can't trust this guy. If he had anything better, he would have indicted him for some kind of a conspiracy that involved other people. The way Nixon, for example's people were indicted and he was named as an unindicted co-conspirator. So I think if they had anything beyond Flynn himself lying, and why he lied, we don't know, because he lied about something that was entirely lawful, it doesn't show strength when you go after your main witness and call him a liar.
Maybe we shouldn't worry, but it gets worse. The Special Counsel Regulations, 28 CFR 600.1, require that a special counsel cannot be appointed unless there is a specific crime to be investigated. Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's letter appointing Mueller does not list a crime. That means the entire investigation is contrary to Department of Justice rules. Moving on, things get really bad. We know that Mueller and James Comey are best buds. We also know that Comey lied to Congress about the Clinton investigation. In particular, he lied that his decision to exonerate her was made after witness interviews. The swamp is bubbling up like a witch's cauldron. Then this week, we learned about an FBI special agent named Peter Strzok, who not only up to his ears in investigation, but has his fingers in several other pies. Mueller fired him months ago for, quote, anti-Trump text messages to his mistress, an FBI attorney. Let's close the quote there. That's good. But Mueller also refused to let Congress question him for quite a while. Under pressure, Mueller finally backed down. But why would Mueller hide for months the fact that he was fired? It doesn't make sense. This mistress is Jeannie Rhee, a key player on Mueller's team, who is still on the team. Her messages are just as damning as his, and she was the attorney who represented Ben Rhodes, the Obama staffer who was central in "If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor," and the Benghazi cover-up. She also represented the Clinton Foundation. Why has she not been fired? Suddenly it gets interesting. We now know that Strzok was the one who changed Comey's language in the Clinton announcement from the legally loaded gross negligent to extreme carelessness. This was composed before Hillary Clinton and 16 other witnesses were interviewed. He was intimately involved with working to exonerate Clinton. He was one of Hillary's key interviewers in that famous FBI session that was not recorded and was not under oath. By the way, that's contrary to FBI policy as well. It's worth remembering that the FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not the Federal Bureau of Immunization. Yet Strzok was directly involved in granting immunity to those witnesses before they offered any information that made immunity worthwhile. It's beginning to look like Comey told Strzok to figure out a way to make sure that his patron, Hillary Clinton got off scot-free. Yes, I know that's a leap, but it's not a very long one. It appears likely he figured out Clinton would win, and there would be a payoff for him if she did. Did I mention that Strzok almost certainly used the phony Steele dossier to get an excuse to get a FISA court warrant to wiretap Trump Tower? Now that we know Strzok was colluding with Comey to obstruct justice, the story turns to Mueller. Why would an impartial Mueller bring on this hyper-partisan agent as his key investigator? Yes, he's an experienced counter-intel agent, but this is a highly sensitive political subject that he's already shown his cards on. It has to be done in a squeaky clean way, so why was he allowed to be the lead? We already know that Mueller had hired a batch of lawyers that supported Hillary Clinton. That by itself is not as big a deal as some would make it out to be. After all, we are all allowed to participate in the political process. But sometimes that participation shows that it is not possible for a person to be impartial. Andrew Weissmann is well known as a prosecutor. His bulldog tactics have resulted in convictions and grudging compliments from his opponents. And he's Mueller's point man in the investigation. He set up that midnight raid on Manafort's home. But he's also a hyper-partisan, just like Strzok. When President Trump signed the original travel ban order in January 27, it became Acting Attorney General Sally Yates' job to enforce it. This Obama appointee had two proper choices. She could either follow orders or she could resign. There were no other legitimate choices. Instead, on January 30, she sent a letter to Department of Justice attorneys instructing them to not enforce the order. Any good attorney would agree that this was gross insubordination, and the president properly fired her that day. Not Andrew Weissmann. He sent her an email saying, "I am so proud and in awe. Thank you so much. All my deepest respects." Even if Mueller didn't know about this at the beginning, now it's public information. And he should summarily terminate Andrew Weissmann, exactly as he terminated Peter Strzok. But Weissmann is still on the job. Yesterday, after I first recorded this podcast, Fox News reported that another key Mueller staffer is Aaron Zebley. This attorney represented Justin Cooper, the IT guy who installed the illegal private server that Hillary Clinton used. Zebley stonewalled the Homeland Security Committee so effectively that they were unable to interview Cooper. This is a blatant conflict of interest. He actively represents a legal opponent of the subject of the investigation. Zebley has no business on Mueller's team. We also learned yesterday that Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr concealed meetings with Christopher Steele, the author of the phony Trump dossier, before and after the election. He also met with Glenn Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS, the company that commissioned the dossier, after the election. These meetings were improper and show a clear prejudice against the president. He was demoted, but he should be fired. The current concern is that Mueller is investigating Trump for obstruction of justice. If this reporting is true, it's legal nonsense. The president has the absolute right to fire the FBI director at any time for any reason, period, full stop. Not only that, he has the absolute right to tell the FBI director to drop an investigation, because the FBI is not an independent body. The Constitution makes it clear that the FBI works for the president. The only way the president can obstruct justice is if he alters or conceals evidence. Wait a minute. Isn't that what Obama did all through his terms by stonewalling Congress? Or if he arbitrarily stops a criminal investigation into himself. But since Trump's request to Comey was not about Trump, that can't be obstruction regardless of what anybody on the left says. We can only guess how many other Clinton partisans are working with the sole purpose of destroying the president. That's not the job of the FBI. President Trump should call Deputy AG Rosenstein to the Oval Office for a videoed meeting. He should ask if the inquiry has turned up any evidence that he directly colluded with Russia as a way to win the election. If the answer is no, then the next line is simple. The president ought to issue a direct order to the Deputy AG. Quote, "It's clear that there has been no collusion with Russia. Have Robert Mueller terminate his counterintelligence investigation. All staff is to be terminated or reassigned. Mr. Mueller is to submit a public report indicating that because all leads have been followed and since there is no evidence of collusion, the investigation is being terminated. All outstanding matters and prosecutions will be reassigned to the normal staff of the DOJ." End quote. Only a report from Mr. Mueller will terminate the firestorm. He is the left's fair-haired boy who is expected to destroy Trump. If he stands up and says it won't work, then the left will have no ammunition left in the argument that the election was illegitimate. The video will be Trump's ammunition in case Rosenstein tries to pull a Comey. Let's pull this together. To paraphrase Elizabeth Barrett Browning, how do I screw you? Let me count the ways. FBI Director Comey plans to exonerate Hillary before he investigates. Comey colludes with Strzok to create the illusion of an investigation. Strzok rewrites the exoneration to avoid problematic legal language. Strzok conducts sham interviews with Hillary and 16 other witnesses. Strzok avoids recording those interviews to avoid creating evidence. Strzok and Jeannie Rhee collude on legal strategy against the president. Jeannie Rhee represented Ben Rhodes during Benghazi. Jeannie Rhee represented the Clinton Foundation. Andrew Weissman improperly gave extreme praise for Sally Yates' illegal and improper actions. Aaron Zebley obstructed the congressional investigation into Hillary Clinton's illegal email service. Bruce Orr colluded in the production and management of the Steele dossier. Robert Strzok most likely used the Steele dossier to get an FISA court to wiretap Trump Tower. Can you spell obstruction of justice? It's a 12-step program. It's becoming very clear that the entire Mueller investigation serves one purpose: to obstruct the process of bringing true criminals to justice while slandering our president. It needs to end, and the president has the tools to make that happen. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Thank you for watching.